Welcome from San Diego, California. We are reaching you in English, Spanish, and Portuguese live through a unique and complex international telecommunications network via satellite, microwave, and cable. The International Training Center brings us together once again through this original video conference program, which joins distinguished organizations representing education, business, and government in Mexico, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Ecuador, Brazil, Bolivia, Paraguay, and Argentina. We also welcome Spain, the United States of America, the Organization of American States in Washington, D.C., and the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, known as UNCTAD, in Geneva, Switzerland. During our program today, we will examine how your organization can increase its effectiveness through organizational synchronization. This is the second video conference of the year 2002 series entitled Excellence with a Global Flair. I am Richard Page of the Page Firm, a law firm specializing in international business litigation, arbitration, and mediation, and I am your moderator for today's program. Organizations in education, business, and government striving for leadership and success must make a special effort now to revisit their traditional and new generation approaches to productivity and competitiveness, given the slower growth and recent economic challenges of the global economy. Managers, marketing specialists, and consultants are focusing today on personnel cost-cutting, streamlining supplier chains, expanding utilization of their e-resources, retraining and reevaluating markets. But the rate of change of taste, styles, and preferences of today's consumers demands that organizations keep adapting and changing efficiently and creatively. This can only be done by synchronizing or establishing full compatibility between our internal managerial strategies and our external marketing efforts. This strategic video conference will present the hows of this innovative productivity approach, including monitoring and assessment techniques to continuously measure an organization's competitiveness and potential for productive success. Our well-known invited speaker will propose a mix of leading-edge and traditional values and strategies to facilitate our use of optimal internal management and external marketing formulas. Let me introduce today's speaker, Dr. Stephen Goldstein. He is the President and CEO of Educational Marketing Services and is nationally recognized as a leading trends forecaster and analyst. Dr. Goldstein is also the producer and host of We the People, a 1/2-hour public affairs television interview program broadcast by AT&T Broadband 5 nights per week, and the host of Teen Talk, an original series of interviews in the round produced by Beacon Television. He also does editorial commentary for South Florida Today on WXEL Public Television. From 1998 to 2001, Dr. Goldstein was the executive producer and host of The Business Exchange, a national award-winning regional 1/2-hour weekly television program produced and broadcast by WLRN Public Television in South Florida. Dr. Goldstein's latest book is entitled You Can't Go Wrong by Doing It Right, 50 Principles for Running a Successful Business, published by PSI Research. He is also the author of The Practical Guide to Educational Advertising and Marketing, 30 Days to Successful Fundraising, and The Fundraiser's Internet Yellow Pages. Stephen Goldstein is a special correspondent for the South Florida Sun Sentinel, in which his editorial column appears bi-weekly. He also is a widely published contributor of articles on subjects ranging from education and politics to the economy and trends. His columns have appeared in the Los Angeles Times, Newsday, the Miami Herald, the Chicago Sun-Times, and other leading national and international publications. Dr. Goldstein earned his bachelor's, master's, and Ph.D. from Columbia University. Welcome. It's great to have you back with us today. I'd like to ask you a short question to begin. Would you say that organizational synchronization is an art or is it a science?
Well, Mr. Page, first of all, it's a pleasure to be back, and I think you've asked the most important question, at least at the very beginning of this program, because synchronization is an art and synchronization is a science. And in fact, the whole presentation of today's program is aimed to have our participants delineate the art of synchronization from the science of synchronization, and then by the end of our time together, after we have discussed matters together, I hope that they will all be in a position not only to recognize the art of synchronization and the science of synchronization, but how to bring the two together in harmony, because that is the ultimate goal. So you've asked the perfect question.
Well, thank you. Let's begin with Module 1, in which Dr. Goldstein will talk about the nature of organizational synchronization and what it takes to change an organization to become more successful.
Today, I want to talk with you about how to create truly successful organizations. Some theories of organizational success focus entirely on the inside management of organizations. Others focus on the outside world in which organizations have to function. My discussion deals with how to create a harmonizing approach, how to bridge the gap between the inside and outside of organizations, and how to bring the two of them together. You're going to hear a lot about two words, change and synchronization. Obviously, the world is always changing. The important question we're going to set out to answer today is how can organizations capitalize on change rather than be overtaken or hurt by it? The answer is synchronization. Currently, organizations in education, business, and government striving for leadership and success must make a special effort to revisit their traditional and new generation approaches to productivity and competitiveness, given the slower growth and recent economic challenges of the global economy. Specifically, managers, marketing specialists, and consultants are focusing on personnel cost-cutting, streamlining supplier chains, expanding utilization of their e-resources, retaining and reevaluating markets. As you would expect, they will come up with any number of ways to adjust to changing external realities, some better than others, some more lasting than others. But typically, after responding to one set of external pressures and demands, most organizations make the mistake of trying to settle down to a new status quo. They ignore what Heraclitus wisely said, that the only constant is change. They ignore the fact that the rate of change of taste, styles, and general preferences of today's consumers demands that organizations keep adapting and changing efficiently and creatively. Most organizations simply don't know how to keep changing. As I said before, the answer to how organizations can capitalize on change is through synchronization. Synchronization is a model for organizational vitality. Through synchronization, the most successful organizations know how to create a corporate culture in which change is anticipated and embraced, and in which there is full compatibility between their internal managerial strategies and their external marketing efforts. To be successful, organizations must serve the needs of the people outside of them. If they don't, they will have to struggle just to survive, and they may eventually cease to exist. But it is difficult, even painful, for organizations to keep up with and adjust to an outside world that is always changing. Synchronization enables organizations to remain responsive to the needs of the people and agencies they serve. It shows organizations how to continually reinvent themselves in response to the realities outside of them. Synchronization makes achieving organizational balance easy and inevitable. As a general observation, I would like you to keep in mind the thought that the synchronized organization exists on two planes. It has to function like two organizations, one that goes about its current activity and one that at the same time is planning for its future. I will return to that thought at the end of the second of today's segments. But please keep the idea of the synchronized organization having to be two organizations at once in the back of your mind. By the time this program is over, you will know the formula for creating a well-synchronized organization. But for you to learn the formula, we are going to have to go through a 5-part process together. First, I want to talk with you about your attitudes towards change and the attitudes towards change that you think characterize your organization. Second, I want to talk about the mindsets you need to adopt so you can synchronize an organization. Third, I'll give you case studies of organizations that people who know the formula have already synchronized. Fourth, I'll tell you the 12 steps for synchronizing any organization. And finally, I'll give you the 10 characteristics of a well-synchronized organization. The process of synchronizing an organization is a response to the inevitability of change. It is a way to capitalize on change. But before you can even think about trying to synchronize your organization, you have to know just how willing you and your organization are to change. So let's begin first by discussing your attitudes towards change. I'd like to do some important exercises with you that show you how you personally and your organization relate to change. I want to ask you a few questions about your personal attitude towards change and the attitude towards change of people in your organization as a whole. Be sure to have a piece of paper and a pen ready so that you can answer the questions I'm going to ask you. Your attitude towards change and the attitude towards change of people in your organization as a whole will determine how successful you will be at synchronizing the inside and the outside of your organization. Your willingness to change is the context in which the synchronization of your organization takes place. Change is not just a process, it is a mindset. In other words, effective synchronization depends not only upon the fact that you may be able to change something, but on your willingness to change and to keep on changing. And that is not easy for most people or for people in organizations to accept. In case you haven't noticed, most people don't like to change. People are creatures of habit. Most people get into a rut, and they do things the way they have always done them. So before I tell you anything about synchronization and achieving a synchronized organization, let's determine your personal and your organization's change quotient. First, I'm going to ask you 10 questions about you and how willing you are personally to change or to accept new ideas. Answer each one of the questions honestly with a yes or a no. Number one, when someone asks you your opinion of a new idea, do you first tell them what you think is wrong with it? Yes or no? Number two, most every day, do you travel to your place of work the same way? Number three, do you take your vacation the same time every year? Yes or no? Number four, typically, are you most comfortable working with the same people? Number five, do you most often do the same things each week at just about the same time? Yes or no? Number six, overall, are you satisfied with things the way they are? Number seven, do you prefer to wear certain clothes of the same color all the time? Yes or no? Number eight, do you have your hair styled the same way most of the time? Number nine, would you rather speak your native language than a foreign language? Yes or no? And number 10, would you prefer to stay in your present career or job? Now it's time to grade yourself. There are 10 questions, each of which obviously deals with how willing you are to change some part of your life. If you answered all 10 of them yes, you probably already realize that you are very set in your ways. If you answered all 10 of them no, you are probably almost totally unpredictable. Neither extreme is good. But if you answered between 6 and 8 of the questions no, you know where you're coming from, but you are clearly open to the desirability of change. Don't worry about what your personal change quotient is now. It is just a benchmark for the moment to tell us where you are starting from. it is likely to change for the better as we move through our discussion. Now, let's find the change quotient of your organization, or an organization you may know of. If you are not currently working in an organization, for example, if you are a student, for example, answer the questions as best you can based upon your observations of how your school runs. As before, there are 10 questions which you will need to answer honestly with a yes or no. Number 1, do people in your organization pride themselves on never doing things the way they have done them in the past? Yes or no? Number 2, do people in your organization allow everyone to follow their own rules? Number 3, does your organization regularly survey your current clients or customers to determine their attitudes and needs? Yes or no? Number 4, does your organization allow people to set their own work hours? Number 5, do you have a research and development department? Yes or no? Number 6, are people in your organization encouraged to make suggestions for improving things? Number 7, are people in your organization encouraged to take risks? Yes or no? Number 8, does your organization formally and regularly assess its effectiveness? Number 9, has your organization implemented a major new product or service in the last 3 years? Yes or no? And number 10, does your organization have a 3 to 5 year plan? Now it's time to grade your organization on its culture of change. As before, there are 10 questions, each of which obviously deals with how willing people in your organization are to change some parts of it. If you answered all 10 of them no, you probably already realize that your organization is very set in its ways. If you answered all 10 of them yes, your organization is probably totally unpredictable. Neither extreme is good. But if you answered between 6 and 8 of them yes, your organization knows where it's coming from, and people in it are clearly open to the desirability of change. No matter how high or low the benchmarks of your personal change quotient and your organization's change quotient may be, I'm going to guess that at some level you and your organization are willing to change, even if it's just a little bit. So, now that you know just how willing you and your organization are to change, let's explore the 10 mindsets you need to adopt, the 10 ways you'll need to change to achieve synchronization, so you can bridge the gap between your organization and the world outside of it. I'm going to predict that in the process, your change quotient will actually improve. I'm going to guess that eventually you will even embrace the notion of change wholeheartedly, because you will see how logical it is to do so. Now keep your paper and your pen handy, because I'll be asking you some more questions as we go along. The 10 mindsets to achieving synchronization may seem simple and clear to you. The only problem you are likely to have, and it's a big one, is believing that you and your organization will be willing to be open enough to change, to adopt them. Take a moment and get a very clear picture of your organization in your mind, and hold that picture there. Every time I ask you if you are willing to adopt one of the 10 perspectives, be very clear about whether it is doable for you and whether it is workable within the culture of your organization. Mindset number 1. Don't live in the past. This is probably the hardest perspective to adopt to synchronize your organization. You have to be willing to proceed from the assumption that there are no givens, that everything you and your organization may have done in the past may need to be radically altered or even abandoned. That's a major psychological state to achieve, and no one is probably able to achieve it completely. The important thing is to realize that before you can even think about proceeding to synchronize your organization with the outside world, you have to at least be able to consider the possibility of needing to change what you do and how you do it. So my first question to you is, are you and your organization willing to detach from the past? Yes or no? Mindset number 2, be flexible. Are you willing to entertain the notion that there may be more than one way to do something? Personally, are you willing to do one job one week and another job another week? Would you consider moving to a different city or country to expand the reach and success of your organization? Are you willing to be flexible in every way to improve productivity? Write down your answer to the question, yes or no. Mindset number 3, be entrepreneurial. Are you willing to constantly be looking for new opportunities? Do you look for new trends in the marketplace? Do you study other organizations like yours? Do you learn from their mistakes? Do you keep looking for new market niches or unserved needs that you can serve? Are you willing to be entrepreneurial? Yes or no? Mindset number 4, look for the best people. The best people to work in synchronized organizations are people who have a wide array of talents. The more abilities people have, the easier they will be able to adapt to and be successful in a rapidly changing environment.